This week, bus riders were reminded of an important anniversary through signs announcing Rosa Parks Day. Her brave act of resistance against racist policies occurred on December 1st, 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama. She refused to give up her seat for a white man and to go to the back of the bus, as she was ordered to do. Every year, our ride-on buses display her photo and give a brief summary of why her arrest was so important. It was one of the sparks that ignited the movement that led to protests across the country in the fight for civil rights. Civil rights reform did not come easily. When I was growing up in the 50s, almost every major social and civil institution opposed civil rights. The Democratic Party was not the party of civil rights. Every battle to provide freedom and the full rights that Americans were supposed to enjoy was hard fought. The truth is that the end of slavery did not make black people free or equal, or erase the barriers to equal rights that were erected throughout the country, including Maryland. The barriers and the consequences of past injustices still exist today. A few years after the Montgomery bus boycotts, I attended the March on Washington. Later, when I went to the University of Maryland, I joined other students and faculty to fight for the desegregation of housing and employment in Prince George's County around the University of Maryland campus, as well as at the university itself. University recruiters told black high school students that they should attend the other black schools in the university system and that they would not be welcome in College Park. We often think of the civil rights struggle being a problem in the states in the Deep South, but Maryland's and even Montgomery County's own history was just as bad. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s and watched TV, you'd see white mobs objecting to integration and harassing black students in the ugliest of ways all over the country. It was hard to understand the intolerance that fueled the dehumanizing policies that made it so hard for black families to find jobs, buy homes, and build wealth. But racism was taught, reinforced with bogus science, and that poisonous ideology was inflicted on so many of the students I went to school with. And I think a lot about that because I'm sitting in classrooms with other 11, 10, 12-year-olds, and the ideas and the things these kids were saying, they weren't coming from something they had thought out. They were coming from something they were told. And kids absorb sometimes way too much of what they're told. And this racist nonsense that was fed them was one of those things that got too much absorption. I honestly don't think many Americans and more recent immigrants know about or saw the racism that was so openly expressed, and therefore have no sense of what black people had to, and in some cases, still have to endure. I'm glad to see how much has changed in our county and throughout the nation, but racial bigotry and inequity still exist. Although it's been nearly 70 years since Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, her life and actions remain an example of why it's important to speak up, demand change, and stand your ground when challenged. She was right to break the law when the law was wrong. Let me leave you this week with one of my favorite quotes from Rosa Parks. I've learned over the year that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. You must never be fearful about what you're going to do when it's right.